Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. How to show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Hey everyone, welcome into the second episode of The Process for this week. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on our YouTube page. I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama. You guys know what to do. First, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Subscribers, make sure your notifications are turned on by hitting that notification bell so you can be notified when we drop content on our YouTube page. I am here at least one time a week to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news, so be sure to stay locked in by hitting that subscriber button. You guys want to be more involved with the show, you can leave a recruiting question via voicemail on our voicemail line at 205-984-3222. Call that number, leave your Alabama football recruiting question via voicemail, and it could be answered on a later episode of The Process. That number will be located on the screen throughout the duration of today's show. On this episode of The Process, I want to talk a little bit more about the Crimson Tide's upcoming big recruiting weekend, with it being A-Day. I know Alabama fans are super excited, definitely joyful to get an opportunity to see this new Alabama squad in action, but a lot of top recruits will be in town. I want to talk a little bit more about those guys and also discuss a couple of guys who could be on commitment watch after the Crimson Tide pulled in a verbal commitment from four-star defensive end Ennis today out of Eufaula High School in Eufaula, Alabama. If you guys have been watching The Process over the last couple of weeks, you know that we talked about Ennis a lot. We basically discussed him being one of the prospects who had the Crimson Tide as his leader on a couple of episodes of The Process ago, so be sure to stay locked in on The Process so you can stay updated on those type of things. But today I want to talk about a couple of guys who I feel could be on commitment watch for this weekend, with the Crimson Tide hosting some of the top prospects in the country for their annual spring game, A-Day. But before I get an opportunity to take a look at that list and talk about those guys who I feel are on commitment watch, I do have a couple of quick recruiting updates regarding the Crimson Tide's recruiting efforts and getting guys on campus this week and this weekend. We're going to start with five-star wide receiver Brandon Ennis. On the last episode of The Process, I said it would be big if the Crimson Tide were able to get him on campus, but unfortunately they will not be able to do that on this weekend. He has rescheduled his Alabama visit. He has canceled it once again. He said he's going to try to get to Tuscaloosa in June, and when you take a look at the month of June, that could be an official visit. So I don't feel that the Crimson Tide are in the best position for the five-star wide receiver out of American Heritage High School in Plantation, Florida at the moment. We'll see how things shake out in this recruitment if he actually gets to Tuscaloosa in the future, but that is an interesting development when it comes to the Crimson Tide recruiting five-star wide receiver Brandon Ennis in the 2023 recruiting class. One guy who did get on campus very recently, he's actually on campus right now, is five-star defensive end Mateo Yui Angela out of St. John Bosco High School in Bellflower, California. Him and his dad have been trying to get to Tuscaloosa over the last couple of hours, over the last day. They finally got to Tuscaloosa a couple of hours ago, and the five-star defensive end is set to visit the Crimson Tide for a couple of days. Taking a look at his recruitment, I think it's pretty open at the moment. The Tide have been heavily involved in this recruitment for a very long time. Taking a look at what he brings to the table, currently standing at 6'5", weighing approximately 230 pounds, an all-around athletic guy who played on both sides of the football for St. John Bosco High School in the past. Has played a little bit of tight end, but I think he's going to be a defensive end edge rusher at the next level. I think, like I said, his recruitment is pretty open, but I think it's going to come down to some of the more top programs in the country when it comes to a decision in the future for the five-star defensive end. Of course, his older brother is ADay List, who is the starting quarterback for the Clemson Tigers, who was the starting quarterback for the Clemson Tigers on last season. We'll see what happens this season with their quarterback situation, but he's a guy who is considering the Crimson Tide. We can talk about Mateo Yui Angela, definitely a prospect to know in this 2023 recruiting class. It is big that the Tide are actually getting him back on campus, getting the opportunity to try to sell him on their program. So be sure to just watch out for five-star defensive end Mateo Yui Angela. But those are the couple of recruiting updates I wanted to provide you guys with today. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of guys who I feel could be on commitment watch for this weekend, with the Crimson Tide hosting some of their top targets in the 2023, 2024, and even some 2025 guys. The first guy who I feel could be on commitment watch is 4-star offensive lineman Wilkin Formby out of Northridge High School in the Tuscaloosa area. He's an Alabama legacy, has some great ties to the program. Growing up in the Tuscaloosa area, you know you are going to be very familiar with the Alabama football program. He has a great relationship with the Crimson Tide's coaching staff, including a great relationship with the Tide's offensive line coach Eric Wolford, which goes back to his time in Kentucky. You take a look at Wilkin Formby. He's a 6'8" offensive lineman who could be an offensive tackle at the next level. Displays great mobility, knows how to carry his size really well. He has visited Tuscaloosa several times over the last couple of weeks. With them being in Tuscaloosa, of course, it's just a simple drive to go up to the University of Alabama to watch a practice and just get an opportunity to watch the Crimson Tide scrimmage recently as well. So the Tide has hosted him, I think, like 2 or 3 times over the last couple of weeks. This probably be the 4th time this upcoming weekend. If a decision comes from him this weekend, I feel Alabama will be his choice. Another guy who I feel the Crimson Tide could get a commitment from if he just wanted to make a decision. He has not said he will make a decision anytime soon, but I feel the Tide are in the best position to land him at the moment. Of course, when I talked about a couple of prospects who I feel the Crimson Tide are favored to land on an episode of The Process last week, Makari Vickers was one of the prospects I talked about. Of course, he's a 4-star defensive back out of St. John Paul II Catholic High School in Tallahassee, Florida. Whenever I talk about Makari, I'm going to start off by saying I feel he's one of the most complete defensive back prospects in the 2023 recruiting class. Has great size at 6'2" and approximately 180 pounds. Proven speed, ran a 4.4 40-yard dash when he camped at the University of Alabama in June. He also has some versatility to his game. Started out at cornerback for St. John Paul II Catholic High School during his sophomore season. Has transitioned to play a little bit more all around the secondary. Has transitioned to more of a safety during his junior season for the Panthers. So Makari Vickers will be in Tuscaloosa this weekend, along with Wilkin Formby being some of the top prospects in the country. And Vickers is a prospect I would put on commitment watch if he wanted to make a decision. I feel that the Tide really like the versatile defensive back out of the state of Florida. He has a great relationship with Alabama's coaching staff and the Tide's defensive back coach Travaris Robinson as well. Their relationship goes back to Travaris Robinson's time at Miami. So Makari Vickers is a guy to keep your eyes on. Those are the prospects who I feel are guys to watch when it comes to prospects who could make a surprise commitment. But there are some other guys to highlight as well who will be on campus this weekend. And Tony Mitchell, a 5-star defensive back out of Thompson High School, is one of those guys. He actually visited Alabama earlier this week. Him and a couple of his teammates, including 5-star defensive end Peter Woods, were in Tuscaloosa earlier this week to watch the Crimson Tide practice on Tuesday. So he will return to Alabama this weekend to watch the Crimson Tide's spring game. Of course, with him being from Thompson, a couple of his former teammates will participate in the Crimson Tide spring game on this weekend. When you take a look at Traquan Fegans and also Jeremiah Alexander, so we'll see how that plays out with Tony Mitchell getting back on campus. Taking a look back at his recruitment and how it looks at the moment, he currently has a top 5, which includes Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Oregon, and also has Texas A&M in there. He recently took a visit to the Aggies, and that visit looked as if it went as planned. It looked as if it was a great visit for the 5-star defensive back out of Thompson High School. When you take a look at some of the other programs listed in his top 5, some of those programs have hosted him recently outside of Oregon. When you take a look at the Aggies, Georgia, and also taking a look at Florida, those schools have hosted Mitchell recently. The Crimson Tide have hosted him recently as well, outside of the time that he visited this week. But I think it is huge that they're getting him back on campus this weekend. He's one of the Crimson Tide's top overall targets in this 2023 recruiting cycle. They have been recruiting him for several years now. I think he picked up that offer when he was a freshman. So Tony Mitchell will continue to be one of the Crimson Tide's top targets. I think it is big that the Tide are getting him back on campus, along with 4-star quarterback Eli Holstein out of the 2023 recruiting class. Of course, we know the Crimson Tide's 2023 quarterback recruiting situation. They're looking at a couple of guys at the moment, including Dylan Lonergan. Everyone knows 5-star quarterback Arch Manning, but Eli Holstein continues to be one of the Crimson Tide's top quarterback targets in the 2023 recruiting class. He's making a return trip to Tuscaloosa. Pretty interesting decision, and we'll see how that plays out for the former Texas A&M commit. When you take a look at Eli Holstein's game, I broke down his game actually in a reaction video on our YouTube page. You guys be sure to check that out. But he has some great accuracy on his throws, can be a little bit more athletic than I think most people give him credit for in terms of rolling out of the pocket and making some plays. So Eli Holstein will continue to be one of the Crimson Tide's top quarterback targets in this 2023 recruiting class, along with Dylan Lonergan and Arch Manning. But before we wrap up today's show, I do want to provide you guys with a list of some of the guys who will be in Tuscaloosa on this weekend. I think when you take a look at this list, if you're an Alabama fan, you're going to get really excited. Let's take a look at some of the prospects who will be in Tuscaloosa, including 5-star running back Richard Young out of Lehigh High School in Lehigh Acres, Florida, one of the top running back prospects in the 2023 recruiting class. You have Tony Mitchell, of course, who I talked about a little while ago. You have some of the top prospects in the 2024 recruiting class headed to Tuscaloosa as well. Wilkin Formby, the Crimson Tide's newest defensive end commit, and UNZ Pierre. So it is going to be a big weekend in Tuscaloosa. When you just take a look at this loaded list, I'm pretty sure those guys are excited to get to Tuscaloosa, continue to build their relationship with Alabama's coaching staff, and just get an opportunity to enjoy ADay as well, and some of the festivities to go along with the great event and just the things that go around the event. But thank you guys so much for joining me today on our YouTube page. That is what I wanted to take a look at on today's episode of The Process. Talk about some guys who could be on commitment watch this weekend, provide a couple of recruiting updates about some guys who plan to visit Alabama, some guys who are actually on campus at the moment. As always, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Subscribers, hit that notification bell, be notified when we drop content on our YouTube page. Then head over to touchdowналabama.com, pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles, get your hands on our yearly print magazine issue as well. Then head to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device to download the Touchdown Alabama app. If you have an Apple device, be sure to head to the Apple App Store to download the app. With that app, breaking news notifications will be sent to your mobile device. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.